I feel like I need something to happen. Anything to happen. I don't care what it is. Just something happen, please.
Like a roster move, a coaching hire,
anything.
Some surgery.
It's been a very slow week in Eagles land.
Yeah, but you know that old story about if there's no news, make some news. So that's what we've done.
Yeah. We'll do that again today. We have no other options. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank.
No, like we could say, you know what? Nothing's happening. We're not doing a pod. But no, we're here for you guys. There's going to be a pod.
And I'm Dave Zangaro. And then look, sometimes these end up being the most fun pods because we're not, we don't have to be stuck within the confines of news. We can have a little bit of fun. And we're going to do that
it's
today.
Like freeform jazz podcast.
Yeah, you could say that in a way. So I think this will be a fun
podcast.
I think this will be fun, though. I'm excited about this one. Later on in the pod, we're going to go through Howie Roseman's best and worst free agent signings. We kind of came up with a list of some good ones and some bad ones, and we're going to attempt to just come up with the top 5 best and top 5 worst Howie Roseman free agent moves. And I don't think it's going to be super easy, and I don't know if we're going to agree on it, but we'll try to come up with...
agree on anything else.
I know. But we'll try to come up with a consensus list. We'll give and take a little bit there.
Yeah.
And we also have... we'll start with it today. The most likely and least likely of the Eagles free agents to return. And this is something we've been doing on Bird's Huddle on NBC Sports Philadelphia. And I was surprised how different our lists are. And I don't think that's because we disagree all the time, but I think it's because it's a really hard offseason to figure out what's going to happen.
Yeah. And when I sat down to put together the first list, which was the most likely to be back, I'm looking at the list and the names, and there's like not one guy who is a slam dunk to be back. Not one. That's really, really rare, especially when there's so many free agents.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we're talking about 20 free agents, and we can't come up with a consensus. Like,
we only had one name in common, and that was, well, we'll get to that.
Yeah. Well, how do you want to do this? So I have the graphic here from the most likely. Do you want me to pop that up?
Dave's proud of this graphic that's going to pop in the podcast here. So, yeah, let's do that.
The YouTube viewers get quite a treat because there's a graphic coming.
And if you're just listening, you're missing out big time.
Yeah, we'll tell you who's on the lists here. I got to work on my headshot. I'm not a big fan of that one. I look like I'm scheming something.
I have like this piece of hair sticking up here in my headshot. So
they could have probably cropped that out for you.
Yeah.
I look like I'm up to no good.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is kind of creepy.
I think we have to start with the most likely.
Sure.
And then work our way.
You have it up on the screen, so.
No, I mean, like in terms of the top 5 instead of revealing them 5 through 1.
Gotcha.
You had TJ Edwards at the top of the list.
I did.
I was surprised about that.
Yeah.
Because it kind of bucks what we know about how the Eagles view that position.
That's true. But I had to pick someone, and I kept going through them like who's a really valuable player that is really good, but won't be breaking the bank. And that's how I approached it. And I think there's that class of Hargrave and Bradbury and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and the guys are going to be, making a ton of money. And I think TJ's got some value, and he's a good player, but I think he's the one guy who's a better than average player who's not going to be breaking the bank. So that's really the only reason plus, like the whole, if you're a new defensive coordinator, what do you want to start with? You want to start with your own guys, but you also want a guy who's been here that the players and coaches respect. He's a very smart guy, doesn't make mistakes. He's a team first guy, so he'll embrace a new coach, whereas some guys, might not. And so I thought there was some value there with TJ Edwards. I just could be wrong in all these, but I think he'll be back.
He was one. He didn't make my top 5 list. I have a hard time seeing them paying a linebacker. I think they'd overpay for some of the other positions. And I think it really comes down to what we think TJ is going to get on the open market, right? If you think he's going to not get a lot, then I think it's obviously more likely he's back. I think it'd be more likely he's back if Jonathan Gannon was back.
Could be.
Because then you have the same play caller, you have the same play caller on the field. I think that matters. I guess maybe it matters a little bit too what they think of Nakobe Dean, where they think he best fits.
Yeah.
Next year, if it's at the Mike, then they're probably less likely to bring TJ back. If they think he's better at the Will, then maybe a little more likely.
Yeah. And then there's always the possibility he goes off to Arizona with Gannon.
I think that possibility is real.
Sure. So it was really a matter of just by default. I just thought he had the best chance.
Interesting. Yeah. So my top pick here was Jason Kelce. And I tried to go with the numbers game here a little bit because I know that one of the options for all these other guys is that they could go play somewhere else. And I know that's not an option for him. It really comes down to either he plays in Philly or he retires. And you and I have kind of disagreed on him. Just our hunches have been different. I think he's coming back. You think he's retiring. And that's not based on anything because I don't even think he knows yet.
I don't think he's retiring. I think there's a better than 50% chance. It's like if I had to go one way or the other, I'm going that way. But
and we do.
Yeah.
for these games.
But I wouldn't say I think he's retiring. I just think he's more likely retiring than not retiring.
Okay.
Like I don't feel strongly that he is.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, but it's still over 50%.
Yeah.
All right.
51.8.
Playing some semantics games here. But yeah, that was why I put Kelce at the top because it really comes down to the Eagles or no one. Whereas the rest of these guys could end up somewhere else. Your 2 was Boston Scott. And I had Boston Scott at 3. I think for the same reasons. He's not going to cost a lot. I think they generally want to have him back in the building, right? Like there's no reason to not want Boston Scott back.
He's a good player. And team guy, won't cost much. And plus, I think we're both operating under the assumption Miles won't be here. So makes sense to have Boston here.
Yeah. And the Giants already franchise tagged Saquon, so they don't have that money to throw Boston Scott a 3-year, $30 million.
But they sure will hope he goes to the AFC, or at least outside the NFC East.
My number 2 is BG. I can't see him leaving. I really can't. I think it'll get worked out. I know there's been some interest. We heard reportedly the Browns were interested. That makes sense. Does he really want to finish his career in Cleveland?
It's hard to imagine.
All right.
Yeah.
You can't figure out a deal with Brandon Graham, who's still a good player.
Yeah.
And some of these other guys, you can say, well, don't get sentimental, Howie. Brandon Graham had 11 sacks last year.
He did.
It's still an important position.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to what you expect from Derek Barnett, who's going to be coming back from an injury.
I don't know if you can rely on him.
I don't know either. But also, I'm not sure if we're all kind of assuming BG will take a hometown discount, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would, but it's not like he's going to turn down millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah. He could probably make more somewhere else. So it's going to be. I think he's one of those guys who he could play a year somewhere, finish his career, and then come back and work in the front office here. I could see that. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. It's not what he wants, but I think for him, he'd rather play and make more money than just come back here just because this is where he's always been.
I guess so, but I think the Eagles do want him back, and I think it'll be at least a competitive offer.
Well, what do you think? Like, money, it's kind of hard to speculate, but
yeah, it's tough to speculate.
Yeah. He's also 35.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, what are the odds he has 11 sacks again?
Well, he's never done it before, so having back-to-back double-digit sack seasons probably not in the cards.
Yeah, but he's been a steady 8 to 7 to 9 guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
your number 3 and my number 4 are, I think, for similar reasons. You had Marcus Epps at number 3.
Yeah, just because he's going to cost a third what Chauncey Gardner-Johnson costs, and he kind of the same thing as TJ Edwards. He's a good player. He's not a great player. But these are the kind of guys that you need when you're paying your quarterback $45-50 million a year. So Epps is a smart guy. He can pick up a new defense. He's really solid. I think he played all 17 games last year. Durable. He's just limited. He's just limited in what he can do. But these are the kind of guys I think you can. I mean, I don't think he's going to be getting big offers elsewhere. Maybe I'm wrong, but you can get him for a few $1,000,000, and
He might be another guy you're competing with Jonathan Gannon to keep.
could be. Gannon loves him.
Yeah.
And one thing about TJ and Marcus, they're both in a similar situation. They've never really, TJ was undrafted. Epps was a 6. So they're both finishing their rookie contracts. And, well, not technically, but
yeah. TJ had the extra.
TJ, yeah. But neither one's ever made big money. So they're definitely going to, want to hit the open market and see what their value is.
Yeah, they should. My 4 was a guy who's made plenty of money in his career. It's Fletcher Cox. And I don't know if that's necessarily the right move, but I think Javon's probably going to leave because they're not going to be able to afford him. And we know they value that position so much. So I don't know if they'll be willing to let Javon and Fletcher go. Now, they might not have a choice, but if they were saying, well, we can pay Javon up to, I don't know, $17 million a year, whatever it is, whatever that cutoff point is, 16, 17 million, whatever it is, he leaves. And then they're like, all right, the second option could be keeping Fletcher, who played fairly well, not up to Hargrave level, but had I thought a bounce back year in 22.
Yeah. Again, he's a guy that for me it's difficult to gauge his value on the open market because of his age. He has kind of steadily gone downhill. I think he bounced back a little this year. But again, it's like, where's he going to be next year? And I just don't see him because I think he's a really proud guy who is, I don't think he's one of these guys who's like, I have to finish my career in Philly. I don't
either.
He believes he can still play at a high level and he wants to get paid for it. I don't think it's going to be here. But I don't know what other teams think. I don't know where teams see his value if he wants.
And it's funny with him because, like, we talked about Epps and TJ getting their first chance to really test the market. This is Fletcher's first time to really test the market. They did a good job of just extending him and keeping him under contract. He was a free agent for 2 days last year.
Yeah, but I think that they knew right from the start that they were going to agree to something. But yeah, he. I mean, if somebody's going to pay him $10 million, it's not going to be here.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
But I also think I just have a hard time seeing them let both defensive tackles go.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah. Your number 4 was someone who was on my mind, Zach Pascal. I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on it, but it's Nick's guy.
Yeah, and it was just, and I'm not saying I would bring him back necessarily, or I don't think they need to upgrade that 3-4 WR 3-4. But Nick loves him. He's cheap. That's really it.
Yeah. That's good enough reason.
Yeah.
And sometimes you throw your head coach a bone. He wants Zach Pascal on the team. Give him Zach Pascal. Veteran minimum? Yeah, sure, whatever. Here you go, Nick.
Yeah.
My 5 was CJ Gardner-Johnson. I know some people think he's definitely gone because he tweeted what we think was a farewell video. Things can change. And my guess is that was him realizing that they're not going to tag him, that they're not going to get to a deal with him before this whole thing becomes a competitive deal in free agency. So I think they're going to let him test the market. I'm just not so sure it's going to be as strong for him as he thinks it's going to be.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of safeties out there who are pretty good.
Jesse Bates, Julian Love's headed that way.
Jordan Poyer.
Yeah, there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
Guys who have played safety for more than 1 year.
Yeah.
Might not have the upside as him, but it's tough. Like, I think the Eagles might be willing to pay for upside because they at least seen him in the building. These other teams have seen a year of him at safety, and not even a full year because he missed those games. And other than that, he's known as like a brash young defensive back who has versatility. But how much are teams going to pay for that?
Yeah, that'll be interesting one to watch. I could easily see him, testing the open market for a few days, and the offers aren't there, and other guys are signing, and he's not, and they call Howie back and say, all right, we'll take that $10.7 million a year.
Yeah.
But I think that's the only way he's back.
I like to do on 10.7. Very precise. 10.725.
It's just a number.
Your number 5 was Jason Kelsey.
Yeah. I feel like it's 50-50, so I put him number 5.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know. So
okay.
Nothing would surprise me with him.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 options, so any other option than those 2 would surprise you.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. The least likely, we don't have a fun graphic here yet because we haven't done this on TV, right. And I'm not making a graphic.
I don't know who yours are.
Okay, well, I'll tell you my number 1. We'll just go back.
Mine?
Yeah, I have yours in front of me. We'll go back and forth. Yeah, so my number 1 is Robert Quinn. And you said this is cheating.
No, I didn't say that. Okay. You asked me, is this cheating?
Yeah, and you gave me a look.
Is it? Kind of.
Yeah.
But,
so our 1 criteria was no Brett Kern.
No Brett Kern.
He would have been my number 1. Robert Quinn, the one thing he has going for him is Sean Desai. If Robert Quinn's back in 2023, Sean Desai has way more power than we thought.
Or than he should. But also there's the same thing where Sean Desai might know better than any other defensive coordinator. I don't want him here. So could go both ways.
Last time he had Robert Quinn, it went pretty well.
Yeah, it did go pretty well. 18.5 sacks down to 1. I think he had 1 with Chicago.
He did.
Before he got here. Biggest one-year drop in history. I looked that up. That took me hours.
Yeah, I believe it.
There's no easy way to do that on StatHead. By the way, can you believe StatHead does not have a combined team scoring finder? Like in that Sixers game, it was like 147, 143 the other day. Like you can't do highest scoring game.
Huh.
You can only so I did like because it ended up being the 3rd highest scoring Sixers game ever. I had to do every time
at halftime.
Yeah, it was in the 70s, but I had to do like every time they scored like over 130 and their opponents were over 130 separately, and then kind of start adding numbers up.
Yeah.
And
did you feel like that was a good use of time?
But once I was into it, I couldn't stop. Like that's the problem with stats. Like I was talking to Jason Stark about this. It's like
this is really like 2 of you are the only people who can have that conversation.
It's true. It's like the stat just gets you in its grips. It's like, I've put an hour into it. I'm not going to stop now, even though I'm only back to 1988.
Aren't you afraid you're going to miss something?
No. Okay. What would I miss?
And if you did, no one would know.
It's like 2 in the morning. Oh, miss
miss one possible combination that you're cross-referencing. I get it, but looking at line after line.
You're asking me if I'm afraid I'd be wrong?
Yeah.
No, that has never occurred. It's never crossed my mind.
Okay.
Maybe once or twice.
Yeah. Anyway. So my number 1 is Robert Quinn. Your number 1 was my number 4, Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I don't see any way. I thought it was a long shot before his production kind of dropped off, not dramatically, but
see, I think that actually might increase his odds of being back.
Just because his value might be lower.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think when people look at a season, 1,200 yards, Pro Bowl, 4.9 per carry, his hand, he hurt his hand and he has sore knee. I don't know. I really like the player, and he's been a really good Eagle. Really, just a really productive player. He's gotten better each year. Thought he was a really good player this year, but I don't know how you justify paying him $6-7 million when you have guys like you have Gainwell, you have Trey Sermon. My theory that they kind of claimed him from the 49ers with the intention of just mothballing him this year, and then he's in your mix next year. He was a 3rd-round pick.
Like he went mothballing instead of red shirting.
Either way, red balling, moth shirting. So and you have the kid from Oklahoma too, whose name I'm forgetting. Don't tell me. Kennedy Brooks.
Yeah,
Kennedy Brooks, who was really productive college back, and he's a tough runner, runs hard, and we saw that in camp. So they have some options there. They could draft a guy in the middle rounds. I think the way Gainwell just kind of took ownership of what turned out to be RB1 late in the year in the postseason in the Super Bowl tells you, where this is going. So I just don't see him being back.
Your number 2 is James Bradbury, who should be on my list. He's not.
Really?
That might have been a mistake by me. Yeah.
Well, it's not too late to change because I haven't seen your list.
No,
It hasn't been on TV
I'm
yet.
a man of integrity here.
No, you're not.
No, but Brad, I mean, we both kind of agree on Bradbury. It's hard to see him coming back.
Yeah, and I think I wouldn't say 0%. I think like if everything else falls through, and guys start leaving, and he's still out there, I think, I'd say there's a 5% chance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's bigger than that.
Yeah, I have Andre Dillard as my number 2.
Really, number 2? Wow.
Yeah, I just can't see him being back. Like I think he's going to get a big contract. And
do you really?
Yeah, I do, and I think it's. We get spoiled in this city watching good offensive line play, and you think, oh, there's good offensive line. There's not. There are some awful offensive line play around the league. It's actually my theory as to why so many of these other leagues that spring up kind of stink. It's because the offensive line play isn't good enough. There aren't enough guys who are that big and move that well to keep those leagues afloat. So I think Dillard's going to end up getting paid, and the Eagles aren't going to pay anything really for a backup lineman. So I think he's gone.
Well, I hope he gets that opportunity to start that he's been looking for, and I think he'll play well. I think he's really kind of become a good player.
Yeah, disappointing pick here, obviously.
Yeah,
not all of it in his control. He had that injury the one year where he should have been the starter,
and then Mulata just comes out of nowhere and
was better.
Yeah,
just flat out better. My 3 was Linval Joseph. Don't need to spend a lot of time there. Now, I mean, I think there's a scenario where in November they're like, oh, we could use some depth. Call up Linval, see what he's doing. You're in shape, Linval, and he comes back. I could see that. But in terms of like signing him in the offseason, I don't think that's likely.
Yeah, I think even Sue might be more likely than Linval.
Yeah,
next year. But I didn't include those 2 guys just because it was obvious they're not going to be here. So
okay,
but I easily could have.
But I have Linval on here, not Sue, because I think there's a better chance of Sue being back.
That's fair.
Your 3 was Javon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't see how they can make the numbers work. It's a shame. Such a good player. It's just gotten better and better. They'll really miss him. Yeah, but I just don't see it.
You have CJ/GJ at 4. I have Miles at 4. We talked about Miles already, and I think you've been on the CJ/GJ train leaving. I'm kind of thinking there's still a chance he could be back. Your 5 was Jason Kelce.
Yeah.
So
I figure if it's 50-50, then he should be on both lists.
So in my head, I was doing this and I was thinking, all right, I'm lining up 1 through, what is it, like 19 or 20?
Yeah.
Cutting off the 2 ends, right? Like you're cutting off 1 through 5 and 5 through.
Oh, I see. So you're ranking them all.
16 through 20.
I didn't look at it that way.
Yeah, you obviously.
But that's not how it works either.
Okay.
I don't know. This is my way of saying I have no idea with Kelce. He's 50-50. So he's number 5 least likely to be back and number 5 most likely to be back. Well, you know what?
Just putting my brain in a pretzel here.
I could easily put, taking the easy way out and put Robert Quinn on there, like some people.
You mean the right way? The way aimed at winning this? And then number 5 is Isaac Seumalo for me. Now, that could change if Kelsey's not back. Then I think there's a better shot of Isaac returning. But I didn't hedge, and I'm thinking if I had Kelsey as my number 1 most likely to return, then I have to have Isaac on my least likely to return because they kind of fit together.
Right.
It's fun. And it just tells you that, like, this offseason is really unpredictable.
Yeah, and then you kind of look at these names and how different our lists are and what must be going through Howie's mind every day.
Yeah.
He's not getting a lot of sleep because he's going to bed with dollar signs and salary cap figures and free agents and all this stuff just swirling around his brain.
Yeah. That might happen anyway.
Yeah, that's
especially now
for him.
I don't want to spend much time on this, but I did want to mention that I don't think the Eagles are going to be major players in free agency outside of maybe a few of their own guys. But one way to perhaps go about this is to sign players who are being released from other teams, because then they don't count in the compensatory pick formula. And we know they're playing the comp pick game this year because they expect to get 4 picks back for the next draft, which is the maximum amount of picks you can get. So they know they're losing people. So if they did want to sign people, it might make sense to look at these lists.
Yeah, and you know how he's gonna look at every imaginable scenario, trying to get some talent in here, some inexpensive talent.
I'm going to run through a list here. This is on Fox Sports. They have a little tracker of guys who have been cut. I'm going to list all the players real quick, and then you tell me if there's any name or two that kind of stands out to you, someone you might be interested in. Shaquille Griffin, Chosen Robbie Anderson, which is still fun to say, Donovan Smith, Byron Jones, Frank Clark, Bud Dupree, Eric Kendricks, Leonard Fournette, Marcus Mariota, Kenny Galladay, Bobby McCain, Carson Wentz. Probably no on the last one.
I mean, Bobby McCain's an interesting name. He's not 30 yet, I don't think.
Right around. He has some cornerback, like nickel corner, safety versatility. He's played both.
Yeah, he's played both.
The Mariota name stands out if they have to replace Gardner Minshew.
Yeah.
Stylistically, it makes sense.
It would be ironic to have Mariota here 8 years after the whole, whatever, 9, I don't know, however many years after the whole Chip Mariota thing. But the other guys, they're kind of strike me as it's about the end of the road for a lot of them.
Yeah, well, Frank Clark can still play a little bit. Yeah, he's going to get paid a little bit more. Byron Jones might retire. He can't run. It's really sad, actually. Have you seen Byron Jones? He's probably going to retire because he has nothing left in his body.
Really?
Yeah.
How old's Frank Clark? He's probably 32, right?
32, 33.
30 also.
Yeah. No, I think he is 32. I could be wrong about that.
He's 20. Yeah, he's 29. He'll be 30 in June.
Oh, he's younger than I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to get paid more than the Eagles can afford, probably.
Yeah.
But Dupree's a guy who I would take a flyer on for a really cheap deal, 1-year deal. Has a lot of talent. He's been hurt a lot the last few years. You wouldn't sink real money into him. But I'd be interested to see if he has anything left. He was a cap casualty in Tennessee.
Oh, Cap Calloway?
Cap casualty.
Oh, cap casualty. I'm sorry. I misheard you.
Yeah.
All these guys strike me as kind of on the way down. And Howie's not big on, once a guy hits 30, 31, and you can see the signs that he's starting to decline, he's not big on, even if it's an inexpensive guy now. He's made.
It's worked out before.
Here and there.
Yeah. Chris Long, Patrick Robinson.
Yeah, well, Patrick Robinson how old was he when they signed him?
He's probably 29.
I got Patrick Peterson up here by mistake.
Another guy, by the way, who might make sense late in this process.
P-Rob was he was 30 when he got here.
Mm-hmm. No reason to think that was going to work.
Remember how bad he was that summer?
Yeah, everyone thought he was going to get cut.
I thought he was going to get cut.
Yeah, he was awful. Then they moved him into the slot and went from there.
Won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But yeah, none of the other names really jump out at me.
I'd keep an eye on those guys. The more people are going to get released.
Yeah.
So
we'll do that again in a couple weeks.
Yeah, keep that in the back of your minds. Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone in the great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, Rube, this is going to be fun. We have a little game here set up for us. We're going to try to come up with Howie Roseman's best and worst free agent signings. So we're excluding 2015, the year he was not in charge. He was banished to the tape closet. So we're going from...
I have a separate list of his top 5 medical tape acquisitions.
So we're from 2010 through now, excluding that year. Want to start with the best?
Yeah.
Does that make the most sense? So we're going to come up with the 1 through 5 here.
Okay.
Number 1.
And we have not talked about this. We both put our list together in secure booths.
I had not put a list together. I just had the possibilities in front of me.
All right.
I'm going to be a little free flowing.
Well, I don't really have a list. I just have some names.
Okay, good. Yes. Same as me.
So you want, where do you want to start with?
I think we have to start at the top.
Start at the top.
To me, Malcolm Jenkins is the best.
I agree.
Okay. I'm glad we agree on that.
We'll put a 1 next to his name.
Pro Bowl player, won a Super Bowl, was the heart and soul of that defense for a lot of years.
Great leader.
Great leader. Like durable, played every snap. It's tough to beat him.
Yeah.
Okay. Then it gets trickier. And it's because Nick Foles is impossible to place on these lists.
Yeah.
I think I would have Nick too.
I would not.
Okay.
And you're right. It's impossible. Everything about his career is impossible.
Yeah, it makes it really tough. Obviously,
like when you're ranking the best Eagles quarterbacks, what do you do with them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Super Bowl run, but then he also played well the next year, won another playoff game.
Yeah.
That counts. And like obviously you don't take into account 2013, that doesn't count. It's all what he did as a free agent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm okay with not having him too.
I have him 3, just looking at these names. And I'll tell you who I have 2 is Hassan Reddick.
Already?
Yeah. Already.
I think that's tough. You're doing that on projection.
No, I'm doing it on he was the best player or the best defensive player, one of the top 2 players on a Super Bowl team, and the best defense this team's had since the probably 2002. And
I don't know if you can have him above Brandon Brooks yet. 3-time Pro Bowler.
Yeah,
was a great player on the team that won it.
Yeah, I mean Brooks would be up there as well.
I think those are the next 3.
I got Reddick too. I just think he was so good this year down the stretch. He was getting a sack and a half every game. He had 3.5 in the postseason?
Yeah, but it's 1 year, and like I think he's going to be good the rest of his contract, and he could very well end up being number 1 on this list all time. But it's 1 year right now.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the signing. So the signing isn't just for 1 year. So he's here. So
yeah, but you're also projecting that he's going to be really good.
Yes, I am. I think he will be.
Okay. I don't have to project with Brandon Brooks. I know he has 3 Pro Bowl years under his belt. I know he won a Super Bowl.
It's fair. And he was a great player for a few years, but I'm just to me Reddick meant more to this team than Brooks meant to that team. That might be unfair, but
no, I am on board with that. Like he was 4th in Defensive Player of the Year voting. He should have been higher. He was a legit
I voted for him 3rd.
He was a legit candidate for that. He was great on a team that went to the Super Bowl. No argument for me. But it's 1 year. It's 1 year versus multiple years of playing at a really high level.
My next 3 are Reddick, and then Foles and Brooks in an order.
So we agree on the 3. We just might not agree on the order.
Well, who would you have? Who'd you have 3rd?
I think I would go Malcolm, Nick, Brandon, Hassan.
I'd go Malcolm, Hassan, Nick, Brandon.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean you can make a case for any of them. Well, who's your 5 then?
My 5's a tricky one.
I went Rodney McLeod.
McLeod's a good one. So there are some other names here. I have like Evan Mathis, won few Pro Bowls here. Connor Barwin was really good.
Yeah.
Nigel Bradham. Then it drops off a little bit. I mean, Alshon, as much as it didn't work out toward the end of it, that 1 year deal in 2017 was a big deal.
Yeah.
Nigel Bradham.
You said him already.
Yeah. I'm forgetful like Nigel, like when he forgot there was a gun in his bag and he went to the airport. And Bradbury last year.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't put him on there after just 1 year. Bradbury certainly. For me, Rodney was just so consistent. Got overlooked a little bit because of Malcolm, but he was really good for a long time here.
He was. Are we a little recency bias over Evan Mathis?
I mean, how many years was? I'm gonna look up Evan. That did go bad at the end. He had to prove he had a plane ticket and all that. How many years was he?
4 years, 2-time Pro Bowler, All Pro in 2013.
That second Pro Bowl, he only played like 8 games.
9 games.
9 games.
Yeah.
I'll
go with Rodney at 5. So we have Malcolm at 1, Hassan at 3, Rodney McLeod at 5. So we have to plug in Brandon Brooks and Nick Foles.
Yeah.
I initially had Nick above Brandon, but if you have Brandon above Nick,
I tend to think Nick deserves to be in that spot.
Nick at 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so we end up with Malcolm Jenkins at 1, Nick Foles at 2, Hassan Reddick at 3, Brandon Brooks at 4, Rodney McLeod at 5.
Yeah.
If you went one more, who would it be? Barwin or Evan Mathis?
Probably Mathis.
Mathis.
Yeah.
Hargrave makes a strong case, though.
Yeah.
1 Pro Bowl and then an 11-sack season on a Super Bowl team.
Foles is incredible. Foles won 9 games as a free agent. So he won 2 regular season games in 17, and then obviously 3 in the postseason, and then went 4-1 the next year.
Yeah.
Before he got hurt. He won 9 total games as a free agent, as an Eagles free agent. But he only won, 14? Well, only won 15 the first time around.
Such a strange career.
He's an all-time Eagle. He won, Jalen's won more games in, already than how many Jalen won? Yeah, he's won more games than Nick.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It really is. All right. Want to move to the worst list?
Yeah, let's do that. That'll be more fun.
It probably will be more fun. Honestly, not as bad as you'd expect. I mean, Howie's overall done much better than he's gotten better ones and he's gotten worse ones. Yeah,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
I
don't think I would have worded it that way if I had a second shot at it.
And most importantly, none of the candidates for worst are recent.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the most recent one was Ryan Kerrigan last year.
Yeah. He didn't really cost much, right?
Not much. His was a 1 year, $2.5 million.
Yeah.
But this is where like the cost really matters in the bad ones,
right?
More so than the good ones.
Right.
I think we're going to be in agreement at the top of the list.
Got to be Nnamdi.
It's got to be. I mean, that would be a bad contract now. Like,
I was going to say it would be a bad contract if he played well.
I mean, and I remember there was so much excitement about it. I mean, that's as bad a failure as you're going to get.
I will never forget having a conversation with Howie about Nnamdi. It was like right in the thick of him just sucking, and I can't remember. He was getting killed for the obviously, and he was like, I'm telling you, his last year in Oakland is unbelievable. He's like when we signed him, like every team was like, he started running down the other offers. Like other teams wanted to pay him a lot of money. Everyone thought he could still play. He just couldn't. And
they got duped.
Yeah.
I remember there were moments like when we would be at practice, like even that training camp, like there were moments where you'd be like, oh, we can cover. But they were so fleeting.
Yeah.
And you just never saw it. And I don't think the personality was the reason, but he was a little aloof.
You think he was aloof?
A little bit.
I think he was very open when he talked to us.
I don't think he went in there trying to be a part of that organization completely.
And by the way, I think he's got an unfair rep for eating his lunch in the car.
Yeah, that's not what I mean.
He had an important, not just because I keep hearing that he had a call he had to make, and he brought his lunch to his car. He had to talk to his agent or something, and that's why he was in his car. It wasn't like he sat there every day.
And sometimes I like a good car lunch. I'll do that here. Like I'll go to Wawa, a nice day. I'll open the windows and sit in the parking lot.
Really?
I'll drive over to FDR Park.
Oh, I can't eat in the car.
Oh no?
No, I can't eat in a car.
Why not?
Because, like, say I have like 2/3 of my sandwich, like I'll find the rest of it like 3 weeks later.
Oh, I'm a pretty neat eater.
Yeah, no, I like to, if I'm having lunch, I just want to be like, I'll be a little more comfortable than sitting.
You work while you eat, though.
I do.
I stopped doing that.
Yeah.
I recommend all people stop doing that.
Yeah, we had this in Arizona because we would be working all day and then we'd get to dinner at like 10 o'clock after the podcast, and I would sit there working. But usually when my food arrives, like the minute my food arrives, I'll put the laptop away.
Yeah. Well, I was noticing that like I was working while eating and I wasn't doing either thing well. Like my food was getting cold because I wasn't eating fast enough.
Right.
My work was suffering because all I was thinking about was like get to that next French fry. So I was like, let me just compartmentalize here a little bit.
Yeah.
And do one thing at a time.
Yeah. Anyway, he's number one, and one of my favorite guys though, and I really enjoyed. We would have some really deep conversations about non-football stuff. I really enjoyed my time with him.
Yeah.
But number one, number two is interesting though.
Yeah, number two is interesting. I think Demetrius Bell.
He's in my top three. 5 years, $35 million. But he was only here 1 year. They only paid him about $6 million. That's a lot. I have him number three. I have Malik Jackson number two.
I could do that.
Malik Jackson made $20 million from this organization.
Yeah, I'll put because I think Malik was expected to do more.
Yeah,
I'll go Malik Jackson at 2, Demetrius at 3.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that. I think those are kind of toss-ups a little bit. Where are you going 4? Because I think those three
they stand alone.
Because it was like money and expectation.
I did something different for 4, and I went with Mike Wallace.
Really?
$3 million, and he never caught a pass.
Yeah, that's not great. I would go James Casey. He signed a 3-year contract worth $12 million. What did he do?
Really?
Yeah, what did he do here?
James, what did he sign?
It was 3 for 12, I think.
Oh my goodness, really? What, that was in 13?
Yeah.
He caught 6 passes.
He ended up playing 2 years here, but it was a 3-year, $12 million contract.
All right, did you look up how much he actually made?
Well, it was 2 years, so $8 million.
All right, that could be. He could bump Mike Wallace out of there. James Casey career earnings, Eagles $8 million.
Yeah,
oh,
he's got to be a 4.
Oh yeah,
he didn't do anything.
He could even be ahead of Bell.
I
mean, there's something about Demetrius Bell. He's got to be on.
He's got to be on that.
But
list.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
So we're cool with James Casey at 4.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you'd have Patrick Chung at 5.
Patrick Chung's he was in the mix. I was looking at Haloti Nada too.
1 year, $2.5 million.
$3 million, I think.
Yeah.
Including everything.
At least Haloti
Haloti what?
ate some space.
Chung only made $4 million while he was here. He wasn't awful. He was functional.
Haloti was functional.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, he was.
I don't think he was.
He was functional. He wasn't going to get stats, but he was like,
I don't think his heart was really in it.
Maybe.
Not for one single minute. But Haloti Nada, people don't realize the guy was like a 6-time. How many Pro Bowls how many All Pros did he make?
Yeah, he was a good player, not when he got here.
No, 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first team All Pro.
Okay, let's put James Casey at 4, and then, who's our 5? I would go Chung. I'll go Haloti if you want Haloti.
I almost think that James Casey's too low. I just can't believe that number.
No, but you can't. I'm not moving Nnamdi.
Well, I'm not going to put him ahead of Nnamdi, but
Malik or Demetrius.
I might put him ahead of Demetrius.
No, we got to leave Demetrius at 3. We just need a 5.
Yeah, and so the options are who? Nada and Chung.
Chung.
And there's some guys
you said Mike Wallace.
Who else is in the mix? Like you mentioned, Corey Nelson.
Yeah, Bradley Fletcher.
Zach Brown.
Yeah. Steve Smith, not the good one.
Yeah, he didn't make any money though, right? I think it was
not really. Yeah,
$2 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with either of them.
Okay, let's go with Chung.
Yeah, let's go with Chung.
Patrick Chung. All right, so we went Nnamdi, Malik Jackson, Demetrius Bell, James Casey, Patrick Chung.
It's quite a list.
Yeah, this has been a good pod. Real quick though,
we have send that to Howie and see if he agrees.
Yeah, we have some news though. Actually, it just came out. Eagles have a new linebackers coach.
What do you got?
DJ Eliot, the Temple defensive coordinator.
Really? DJ Eliot.
Isn't that interesting? So it won't be Matt Patricia, which I know fans are worried about.
It was never going to be.
DJ Eliot, I kind of like their process that they were looking everywhere.
Yeah. I'm just trying to.
So he's just coached at Temple for a year.
It's one L and one T.
Yeah.
Coached at Kansas, coached at Florida State.
He really gets to the point with his name. He's not throwing around extra letters that would really bog you down.
7 total letters in his name. It might be the shortest name by an Eagles assistant coach ever. So look that up.
But yeah, I mean, varied background, all at college.
Yeah, he's never coached in the NFL. Interesting. Texas State, Miami, Houston. He's your guy.
Tell you who'd be excited, Kyron Johnson.
Wait, yeah.
Kansas connection.
Yeah, he coached at Rice. Wait a minute. Hang on a second. I got to look something up here. Where did James Casey, did he go to Rice? Oh my God.
Yeah, he did.
They were there at the same time. They were there at this guy coached James Casey. I know he wasn't a linebacker, but
yeah,
it kind of ties everything in the podcast
It
together.
does. That's a nice little bow.
And I don't know. How did I know James Casey played at Rice? I don't know.
I did know that.
Of course you did, because you're the Houston guy.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good, though. We're seeing this staff come together. I don't know a ton about DJ Eliot as we sit here and talk about him right now, but
I think the biggest upset is that Howie didn't wait until we were done.
that is a big upset.
And you got to understand, Howie's office is like a mile from here.
He's got that photo with him at the binoculars. He's actually looking in our podcast studio.
Yeah. Well, when we stopped briefly. We had a little technical issue. He might have thought we were done.
Oh, so we tricked him.
Gives PR the okay to announce it.
We tricked him.
We tricked Howie.
I like that.
Historic day.
Yeah. All right.
Stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
Free agency next week.
Yeah, I can't wait. The podcast schedule might be a little fluid next week, guys. News will be happening. So whenever news happens, we'll try to talk about it as best we can, as quickly as we can.
Yep.
But be patient with us because we don't know how it's all going to go next week. All right, if you enjoy the Eagle Eye Podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. That's it. We'll talk to you next week. For Rube, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan.